All right, so today I want to, I thought we'd talk about some of the things I find kind of hypocritical here in China, or maybe some of the little changes I've seen, or even a little bit some of my backstory if I get a chance to talk about it. I kind of wrote them all down here, and I'll take a look, maybe flip through here as I go, and try and hit on some points and things, just little things. To begin with, I came here because this is kind of a relic of things. You don't see a lot of this Mao stuff in China that much anymore, and maybe that's something that's changing. And I definitely think that's because they're trying to create a new Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping. They're definitely trying to, go back to that sort of system. And I see parallels between sort of Ping Yuan and the nationalism and the psychologies behind that nationalism, or the impetus for that nationalism is very similar to sort of like the impetus behind Jiang Qing. If you know Jiang Qing, she was kind of one of the central figures, one of the Gang of Four behind involved in the Cultural Revolution, who was imprisoned after Mao Zedong's death and held accountable for a lot of those deaths. But I cannot deny that I see similarities in sort of what's going on, and sort of just in terms of a psychological sort of impetus, and directives kind of coming out of the Chinese controlling parties. But anyway, you see less and less of Mao Zedong statues, so this was kind of an interesting find here in Changzhou. It's kind of tucked away in the middle of behind the metro, behind like at a dead end, and it's just kind of a field of demolished buildings behind it, and it's on a road going nowhere, and there's rarely anybody here, so I thought I'd kind of come down, check it out, do a video here. That's one of the changes you're seeing in China, at least I'm seeing. There's no Xi Jinping statues yet, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised at some point they start to pop up here and there. So anyway, like little changes, and some are like kind of funny, but you sense it comes from perceptual qualities. For instance, like T-shirts. Like when I first got here, you saw lots and lots of T-shirts that were just nonsense. Like the English was all spelled wrong, or the words made no sense. And my read of that was like, well, that was because like in around the rest of the world, in Europe and America, like hipster T-shirts had become, the ironic T-shirt become very popular. As sort of a cultural status symbol, and the kids in those countries were spending a lot of money to have a T-shirt that said something that made them stick out, or brought a smile or a laugh for somebody, or a compliment, right? So a lot of that was going on, and you got to figure a lot of those were being made in China, so there was probably a lot of mistakes being made in China. So a lot of those mistakes just kind of ended up on the factory floor, where the workers would pick them up and wear them for nothing, or giving them for nothing, and thus it was a T-shirt. Why not wear it? It's clean, I'm going to wear it. And it's one more thing that I could put in my closet, since I don't have a lot in there. So you see a lot of those T-shirts, but like the foreigners would come over here and think like, oh my God, they don't even know. They're kind of, what the hell does that mean? And what a joke, and they don't even know what it says, blah, 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 right? Well, that eventually sort of started, that perceptual quality sort of started to make them more self-aware, more self-conscious, and now you see like the same, very ironic T-shirts popping up in China with sayings that are very provocative and very ironic and witty, and I'm sure they're paying a lot of money for them, but I think that's kind of humorous, like that. You definitely sense there was a bit of a self-consciousness happening there. That same self-consciousness is starting to happen, like taking videos and photography. If it's not like if it's not like outright suspicion of what you're doing, it's also that same self-consciousness. Like, why are you taking a picture of something? Are you trying to make fun of me? Are you trying to, are you going to make me look bad? You get that sort of self-conscious. You're gonna make China look bad, kind of deal. Uh, and uh, and so, like, you got to kind of be careful about walking into places that you used to probably not get. They probably just didn't care. Actually, they probably were more flattered that you were taking pictures of something because nobody ever took pictures of it. So now they're becoming more self-conscious about that. And along with that, it's like there's still that presence of like kind of the minders, or the evil uncles, as some of the other vloggers call them. But they're less obvious, They just kind of pop up, or there's somebody that are closer to you than you would suspect. Uh, they could be your buddy at this point, but they're also there just to kind of see what kind of person you are, or try and figure out where you're going, or give you some direction to go in the right way. So that's kind of minders, and I only say that because like I have an aunt and uncle who were in the 70s and the 60s, and they told us about having people assigned to them where they were going and follow them, much like in North Korea. Other little changes. Something I noticed the other day here in Changzhou is when I first got here in China, like all the department stores, the Auchans and the Carrefours and the Walmarts, they always had a greeter at the store entrance. So when you're going in, somebody was saying, "Welcome to our store," and there would be like 3 or 4 of them. There'd be a lot of them. They're like the Walmarts in the United States. But then as you were leaving, you had to always produce your receipt. If you had bought something, you always had to produce your receipt and get it stamped as you went out, and they did that for everybody. But it wasn't like a really security thing because they would never check your bags, but you had to stop and get your receipt checked. They don't do that much anymore. I don't know if that's kind of a disappearing trend. The other day I went to RT here, and it was kind of a callback to when I first got here, that they stamped my receipt, but it doesn't happen that much anymore. Some of maybe the hypocrisies that I want to talk about real quick is like the idea of you'll hear a lot of sort of foreigner perception of people going to the bathroom on the streets and that thing, or having their kids do it all the time, and that is just very unhygienic and something that's very discouraged. But the thing is, like, China discourages it because you can go down any street and you can go into any mall or any sort of bathroom, and there's bathrooms. There's bathrooms everywhere. There's public bathrooms everywhere in China. There might be like 2 on a road, every train station, every subway station, and they're not like restrooms are for customers only either. You can go in and use them, but doesn't stop anybody from going on the street. Doesn't stop from putting a kid over a trash can. And you can understand, like, well, it's maybe more hygienic for them to go on the streets than go where they are, than to have them carry it around in a diaper for a bit of time. But I don't know. You can have a diaper and just take them to the bathroom and change the diaper. But that makes no sense to me. There's just so many public bathrooms in China. When you start to discover that, you're like, why are these people still going to the bathroom on the street? Especially when you see like grown men who just kind of pull over on the side of the road, and they'll pull their car over and just get out and take a piss. But it's like, man, just go to one of these bathrooms, man. You gotta just stop and go to the bathroom. That being said, some of the bathrooms are pretty nasty, but they do have staff going around constantly and cleaning them also. The things that make sense to me is like spatial relations in China. You have these profound sort of philosophy about Tai Chi and movement and energy fields, and things like that. And yet, the Chinese will cram 1 million people onto a subway bus, or they'll have a mad rush, or they don't understand, like, if you stand in front of the door when somebody's trying to get out of that door of an elevator, there's going to be a conflict. So you kind of realize, like, Tai Chi is just kind of a personal stress reliever. It has nothing to do with really sort of like the physical idea, the acceptance of physical realities, the acceptance of sort of physical law. And if you want to go further in that idea, belief system of the acceptance of physical laws, you can take a look at Journey of the West, like one of the Chinese psychology that you don't need to follow the gods laws, that you are your own god. You have the Monkey King, and the Monkey King is basically the Christian equivalent of Satan, because the Monkey King is most notorious for being a hero because he defies the gods, or he stands up against the gods, to have his own way, to have his fun, and he's actually a really cool bastard, and I find it a little bit quite disturbing that like the Chinese like try and instill in their kids that this is a heroic figure, when really he kills the lover of somebody just kind of to be cruel. He has no really incentive to do it. He just feels like defying the gods, and that's deemed as some sort of clever sort of intelligence, but. I don't know. I guess in Western standards, he's somebody who doesn't have a firm grip on reality, basically. Oh, there's a dog over there. Dog. We got a strange poodle over here. Where is he? Oh, he's gone. Strange poodle. You'd be amazed at like some of the haircuts. These poor poodles, man. They get. They get embarrassed to no end. People have their poodles cut with hearts on their back, and they'll dye the heart red, or they'll dye their ears orange, or there's these horrendous sort of grooming jobs on dogs here that are just, poor dogs. The dogs don't know, but like, my God, they're just so. I don't know. They're just so. What's the word I'm looking for? They're just so ugly. Just so ugly, these dogs. They make them ugly. They give these grooming jobs that just make them like, freakish, grotesque. And, I don't know, whatever. Other things, hypocrisies, like this idea. My feeling is like if you can't. Oh, so another change is like taxation. Taxation was something that was never happening to foreigners in China when I first got here. They didn't tax me at all. They never mentioned it, But it started to arise as a means of sort of like getting more of your money back. And you had no way of really sort of like following up on if they were actually taking that money and giving it to the government. And supposedly you're supposed to be able to get that money back if you don't reside in China, or you're not living here, you don't intend to live here. You're supposed to get a portion of that back because basically you're paying for their society and you're not getting any rewards of it. And so some of these schools just kind of figured out that was a means of sort of legitimately taking money out of or cutting your salary down. All they had to do is say, yeah, it's for taxes, and they could take a portion of their money and do whatever they want with it, as far as you know. You can follow up on it. I've never done it. I think I probably should start doing that at this point if it is feasible to do so. But anyway. Another thing that's changed is they're also like making this new policy instituting a new policy where like it used to be 5 years before they could consider you a taxable resident in China. They've changed that to 183 days now, of living in China, that you're considered a taxable resident, and that means they're considering you basically a citizen without any of the benefits of being a citizen. They're calling you. And they want to take it to the extent that they can like tax your external revenue, your income, which means if you went home to the United States and worked there, they're supposedly be able to take a portion of that for China, which is just absurd. It's just outright highway robbery. And because it's a policy, like a lot of these schools can extort you. They can say, "Oh yeah, but we're not going to do that to you. We're good, we're cool." But that just means they can, they're going to throw you on the bus. If anybody comes and says, they can throw you under the bus at any given time. They can say, they can let you go on for so many years and then say, "Oh my gosh, guess what happened? You're going to have to pay it now." Because, I know we weren't doing that because we were cool with each other, but guess what? It's my butt or yours, and you're going to have to pay it all back now, and they won't pay it for you. So, I advise foreigners to be a little more concerned about that, especially if your company's trying to like sort of, play ball. So taxation. Other things that I find, incongruencies in Chinese belief is this idea of law and being Chinese. Essentially you're only Chinese if you follow the laws. That's the only thing that makes you Chinese. Otherwise, you're just kind of looking for a genetic trait, which is pure racism. And you understand that racism is a strategy that's been used since, if you believe in evolution, racism began in Africa, and the weaponization of it probably started there too. So all this hoopla about how white people being racist and being like some sort of like the inventors of racism is garbage. You have to, if you believe in evolution, then obviously you would have to understand that Africa was the origination of racism, or else nobody would have had to leave. But in very early stages, it was probably just tribalism, So anyway, once again, like if you're a nation, you're only really a citizen if you follow those laws. And I felt that way in America too. It's hard for me to call those kids smoking pot on the corner Americans if there's laws against smoking pot. It's hard for me to call you an American if you can't like fucking pay your taxes. What else makes you American? Just the idea that you were born on a piece of dirt? No, this dirt can be, this dirt doesn't necessarily, it's not that's, America, the dirt doesn't make the American, it's the policies, the laws that makes the American, the agreements, the trust. That's what makes the American. And it's the same for China, But anyway, you get a lot of people who just don't care about the laws here, you'll see like in the morning here in Chengdu, like most of the major intersections have traffic cops there, and the a lot of e-bikers just don't pay attention to them, they'll just run through and the cops will yell at them or whatever and they'll yell right back, and it's just insane because like this police officer there is first and foremost they're there for your safety, and they're telling you not to do stuff so you don't get killed because we know you're gonna turn around, you're gonna get run over, and you're gonna try and blame it on. You're gonna try and if you get hurt worse, you're gonna put up a big show to try and get something for it, even though you weren't following the laws, and that's pathetic. But you will see more often than not whenever a traffic cop stops a Chinese person who's doing something wrong, the Chinese person will like talk back to him. Some are, granted, some people just go, "Oh yeah, you got me. Sorry about that, whatever." And I think if more people were like that, maybe the government wouldn't have to be so distrustful of its people. If more people were like, "Yeah, I was doing something that I shouldn't have been doing." But more, people get more defensive here. When they get caught doing something, because the Chinese have also a culture of like, always be suspicious but never be held suspect. And you see that in their dealings with the rest of the world. They're very suspicious of any foreigner. Like your intentions, whatever. They're always trying to like manipulate that perception that you are a suspicious character. more than they are can be held suspect for their own actions, And my relationship with Li Xing was kind of it was almost built around that, in my idea, in my mind. It was almost like uh, they were just kind of more suspicious of me, and they wanted to know what my deal was. And that's why she sort of engaged my person, engaged me in an intimate fashion. And once I said, like, hey, wait a minute, you're the one who's suspect here. Like, what is your purpose? What is your, she became overly offended by that, Yeah. Which means you're never going to be friends with that kind of situation. No, I knew what I wanted to talk about, and I just kind of flew out of my mind there. Check our notes. Anyway, I should wrap this up now without getting too much more into it. I'd like to talk more about it. I guess you could talk about, just real quickly, and kind of going back to that, the idea of lying here as a means to the end. I was talking to one of my colleagues here, and we were talking about how lying is not considered a sin or anything like that. It's not frowned upon. It's kind of looked upon as a means of survival. But I found that hypocritical, because the truth is just as effective, as a means to an end. It's just as effective as a it's just much of a tool, So to say that lying has some sort of status or some sort of viability is to say that the truth doesn't have that same viability, So it's kind of it's just chasing its own tail. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, maybe we'll wrap it up there for now, and take it next week, or next time I get a video out, get a chance, we'll make another video and talk a little bit more about this. Certainly would like to talk a little bit more about my personal situation, why I came to China, ideas of elite capture, the people I knew, and how it kind of undermines me, my potential. Talk about maybe that next time on a video, but for now I'm going to take it easy. Let's put it over here because it looks cooler. Take it easy. You guys stay cool and stay tuned, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Take it easy.